Good morning to you. We're going to start making some Golumpki today. And so it's quite a little process. I thought we'd get started on it. I've got my pasta pot going with water at the bottom. I don't boil this or immerse it totally in water. I steam it basically. So because it's ground meat, it's a little bird, right? So I use see this pasta pot because you're gonna be pulling out the cabbage as it's cooking up. So I have this head of cabbage, which I have to core out. And I have my ground meat, which you need. Now, I have 1 pound of ground meat and a half a pound of pork. Okay, so either way, or you can make it all ground beef if you like. And then I have my rice that I made yesterday because I don't want it hot and gooey. I just want it to dry out a little bit, you might say. Better to work with that way. And I have my eggs out and my onions and celery because I saute my vegetables when I add them to the beef. I don't just put raw onion and celery. And I do add a little garlic to mine. So as many steps, and we'll do this together. So I've got the water, I want it to come to a boil, and I'm going to core this out, as you can see here. And this is kind of not too bad. I started cutting at it on my cabbage. Okay, so we want to get in there so that it will steam these leaves out. Now, I put this, I've got like water up to about, I'll show you, up to about here. Okay, I'm going to place this in there, and and then these hard parts here, I don't know what you'd call that, I cut those off. And so I'm just going to core this out a little bit more. And as the leaves start to become tender, I start pulling them off. And I put them in a strainer. In fact, I better get my strainer out. Okay, there it is. With a little pot, oh dear, with a little pot in it so that when it comes out of the water, it just will, I'll drop it into there. And so, there we go. I'm going to add a little salt to that water that I'm going to be boiling with the cabbage. Heaping teaspoon at least. Okay, of course, the water is not filled with water. So we're going to I think that's about all I'm going to do. I think I'm going to be happy with that. And then these leaves will start breaking apart. I am going to take this first leaf off, and maybe not. I can always use it for my base. All right, so I see it's starting to boil. I'm going to add it to the pot and let that steam. And as it steams, those leaves will start to soften, and then I pull them off. You don't want them to be mushy. I know some people do put the whole thing in water, but I don't do that. Okay, so, because I don't want to boil that cabbage. I'm not interested in boiling it. I just want to make it tender enough that it's pliable. Excuse me, I have to. That it's pliable, because you're going to fill it with your ground meat, with your ground meat filling. And so now what we're going to do, I'm going to get rid of some of this here. While that cabbage is, coming to a little simmer and steaming, I have a little saute pan. In there I put about a tablespoon, not quite a tablespoon, oh, maybe half a tablespoon of bacon fat, okay? And to that, I am going to saute my vegetables. Celery, I have about 4, 5 sticks of celery here. I have 2 onions in here. I had a little red onion that I had left over. So so what I want to do is saute both of these. This looks like a lot. That's not going into, some of it will go into our ground beef, but I also use it for my sauce. Okay, so we're building. All right, so let's see what we can do here. I've got this. That bacon fat is coming to a, gotta get nice and hot. We're gonna saute our vegetables, and we're gonna then prepare our meat. I do also, okay, so I said 2 onions and about 4, 5, 6 of celery, and about 6 cloves of garlic that I chopped. That's what I'm gonna do there. And I'm gonna add my eggs to my ground beef while this is going on. I'm going to put just the 1 egg for now. I want to see how this goes. I'm going to also add my salt to that. And let's see, 1 teaspoon of salt. Oh, that's steaming up nice. Okay, and half a teaspoon of pepper, and the rice. But I'm going to mix this up a little bit because I don't want it to be clumpy. You know, I'm going to drop this down. I just put the 1 egg for now. I want to see what the consistency will be. I added the salt and the pepper. I just want to toss this meat. I left it out to room temperature. I pulled my rice out. I made my rice last night, and I let that, put it in the refrigerator. I want it to dry it out a little bit. I don't want it to be hot and gooey. I want it to be, you know. So, you see how that is with the rice? All right, so I'm breaking it up a little bit in there. I have to check how much I want to put in. Some people like more rice, so I kind of go with 75% meat and 25% rice, and then it's I eyeball it again. We're back to that again, but I want to give you a rough idea of how much I'm going to put. So if I have 1.5 pounds of meat, I'm going to put a little bit of this in there, but I do want it to, I want to crumple it, see? I want to crumple that up. I want it to be nice, so that when it goes in, it mixes well for me. I don't want to, you know, like squeeze it together. I want it to be not in clumps, Okay, this is really going here. All right, and my saute pan is ready. I'm going to add my celery. Woo. And my onions. Beautiful. That's going. We got that going. I have to stir that a little bit. Let me get my spoon. And let that just saute down a little bit. After a little bit, I'm going to add my garlic. But I always wait till that kind of completes itself because you don't want to burn the garlic. The garlic is kind of delicate, so you got to kind of watch. So when I saute vegetables, I put that in right at kind of at the end. All right, I'm going to check this cabbage. And let's just go over to that cabbage a little bit. I wanted to show you. Okay, so I have that cabbage in there. Do you see the water at the bottom? So I'm steaming those leaves off. I've got the core side down. Okay, then here I have my vegetables, my celery and my onions sauteing. It'll, you know, half of that goes into my meat and the half goes for my sauce. So we're going to get that browned up. To show you what's happening, uh, some of those leaves are steaming off already, you know, they're soft, they're soft. So I pull them off. As I see them breaking away from that, I look for a little where it starts up here. See, I'm trying to, I have to hold the camera to see how it peels off. The leaf that starts to peel off, that's what I want. And then as they get tender enough, I just take them out of the water and I put them into my strainer. And I will continue to do that. See, here's another one. Here's another one that's loose. And I'm going to put it in my strainer. And I'm just going to keep going like that. I'm going to just keep going like that until all those leaves come off. Okay, so those cabbage leaves are coming off really nicely. As you can see here, I pulled several off. And I'm just letting it steam. And I just go in and break off the leaf. It comes off quite easily, you'll find. So I've got a cup of rice here. I'm going to drop this down. I'm going to put the rice in there. That was a cup. And I'm going to see how I like it. I just like it to look like, you know, that I can see the rice. If I get a clump, okay, I'm going to break it up because I don't want a clump in there. And it does help to make your rice ahead of time, as I said, even the night before, and just put it in your fridge. And then before you're ready to start making your meat, pull it out. Now, I don't know if you can see the consistency there, huh? I can tell you what, I'm going to add just a little more. I'm going to start with, I'll put a half a cup in there. We'll just measure off another half a cup because I don't want it to be too gloppy with rice. And you know, that's a personal preference again. It is a personal preference. Some people like a little bit more. So now I'm going to put in another half a cup. I held off a little bit because I don't want too much rice. This is going to be it. I can tell you right now. This is how I want it to look. So I'm going to put this away. I'm through with the rice. I'm through with the rice. And we already salted our meat. We put an egg in there. I might just be putting another one in. Okay, but those sauteed vegetables are, you know, they're going to be going in there. And they, of course, have to cool down. I'm still sauteing. See how that has cooked down? Okay. Those onions and celery cooked down. You can add a little butter to this too. You can saute them if you don't have any bacon fat. Use a little butter and oil. All right, and we're also going to add a little salt and pepper to that sauteed vegetable. So let's do that. I'm going to put about a half a teaspoon into my onions and celery that's sauteing. And I'm going to also add a half a teaspoon of pepper. All right, that's it. So that's that part. Now, I'm going to check my pot again to see how those leaves are doing. And I had one sitting in there. Let's see if it wants to come. Look, it just comes right off. See? You grab the end, and it just comes off. It's very, very, look. Very easy. Another one. I'm just going to leave that in there. I'm going to get a lot of leaves out of this little cabbage. I can see that. There's another leaf just came off. If it's kind of tough yet, I put it back in, let it steam a little longer. Here's another one. I mean, they just really come right off because you've already cut that core back. And so that releases it. Here's another one. So it's just, they're really working very well for me. I'm lucky because I've had times where it was a little tougher. Okay. Now this one, I don't think I had to cut at the bottom, so I'm going to let that sit there for a while. I'm going to toss these onions and celery around a little bit more. What I'm going to do now is add my garlic that I chopped. I'm going to add that in because it's almost getting to where I want it. And I am going to add a little butter to that mix. A little butter. Because all that bacon fat that I put there is gone. And they're browning up, and I'm going to put about a tablespoon of butter. There it goes. I'm going to lower this down, and it's just really, really pretty, you know. It's really getting nice. So I've added that tablespoon of butter in there. I want that flavor of that butter, and then of course you have the bacon too. A little bacon fat. Whenever I make bacon, I always hang on to some of that rendered fat, and I can use it in different things. Like I used it in my potato soup. Okay, so that is almost done. I've got it really low. Let's go back to the cabbage. All right, we've got these leaves sitting in there that were just, oh, see, that one came off now. I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to put it back so that the core side is down. See, so this way you're not really boiling that cabbage in a big pot of water. I don't do that. You steam the cabbages. And then I'll show you what is next, because then we do something yet with the cabbage leaves before we start to stuff. And while we do that, then we're going to let this onion and celery mix completely cool down. I'm going to transfer it to another plate so that it cools off faster for me. Okay, I'm going to transfer it. And, you know, another good thing you could do, and maybe I should have done, I could have sauteed this a little sooner. Because you can't add, now, there's what's going to be going into my meat, I can tell you right now. I took half of that. The rest is going to, wait, maybe, no, that should really be, I think, we'll measure it so that you'll know. And the rest of this, I'm going to put into my sauce when I make my sauce. And I'm going to be making that sauce pretty soon. Now, I turned that off. We're going to let this cool down so I can add it to our meat mixture. And you see, this has a yummy taste. Yummy, yummy taste. And what do I always go for? Flavor. That's what it's all about. I'm going to put this to the side. And now I want to show you another step. Another step to this. Now, this cabbage, you see this, I don't know what they call that right now. I'm sorry, I can't remember. But I cut that off. That's part of that core because that's very tough. So I make a little diagonal cut like that. Okay? Now, I'm going to put that to the side. And I just keep doing that with these leaves. Cut that off because it's tough. And you don't want that anyway. Who wants to eat that? You put your meat in here and then you make a little, like a little package for it. I'm going to take another one out. And you see that core there from the stem of the cabbage. I cut that off. All right, so there's that. Now I'm going to check my pot again because I think we might have a couple more leaves that we can take. There's another one that we can take out. And let's see what's happening to the rest of this. I might be able to get a few more. Yeah, they're just coming right off. They're just coming right off. Oh, I guess you can't hear. Yeah. They're just coming right off. Here's another one. They just fall off. You catch it by the end. I want to show you. It just comes right off. See? They just keep coming off. And you don't have to be boiling the whole thing in water. This is better this way. Now we're getting to the bottom of this, you know, it's getting smaller. It's going to have to cook down again. I'm going to cover it and let it, and I've got all these wonderful cabbage leaves. Now what I'm going to do while these vegetables are thawing, you know, not thawing, but cooling down, I'm going to keep cutting that little core part off. And then I'm going to show you that once I get that done, I sprinkle my cabbage, and I need another plate for that. So I put another plate here. And I'll tell you what I do. I sprinkle that with a little salt and a little paprika, okay? So you would just, and I can't, there's no measuring to this, it's just, you just salt, little salt, okay? And on the back side of that leaf, you know, I sprinkle a little paprika, like that. And I line them all up on this plate, like that. This is the inside, you can tell by, because the leaf folds up like a little flower. I'm going to continue to do that, and then we'll mix our meat shortly after and stuff our little cabbages. You see, I pulled the bottom of that cabbage up, you know, the last part of it. You got all these leaves here. I want to show you a whole bowl of these beautiful leaves, and that came down, and then here's what's left of it, and I'm just going to cut into that part, and then those little leaves, it's a little hot yet, see how they come off just like that. I'm going to put them in the bottom there because that part is just a little tough yet, so just put it in there. Look at that. Isn't that sweet? Look at it, just completely comes off. And if it's tight, don't pull it because you don't want it to rip. You're going to use these. Now this part is still, oh, it did come down. All right. Very, very, very workable little cabbage, I'll tell you that, because I've had some that are not that easy. See how tough this part is here? I'm going to cut that right away. I'm going to cut that right off. That core. I'm going to drop it back in here. Let that just cook up a little bit because they're just a little stiff yet, you know. But you don't want them to be too soft because then they're going to fall apart on you. And they're going to be cooking in the sauce in the oven once we get that all put together. Okay. I'm going to put this part in there because I'm going to use every bit of this. See, that's the very end of that little cabbage head. We'll put that back in the water. Let that steam a little longer. I use every bit of it because some people just love the cabbage part. So now, I think that we are going to do the rest of this. I'll show you how I finish this off. So we have our rice in there now, and we've got our sauteed vegetables, and they're perfect right now. They're perfect. They're ready to put in there. So I'm going to add that to my meat. Like that. And then I'm going to toss it. I'm going to toss because I don't want it to get too clumpy. Okay? You don't want clumpy. See, and this looks really pretty. Really pretty. Now, I'm just going to take one little smidge of this. Okay. It's enough salt. I wanted to check. And because we added that. We had a teaspoon of salt, and we put some pepper in there too. So we're all done with that part. And this is ready because what we're going to do with this is just, you take some meat, you know, you just take it in your hand like that, lightly, and it goes into a little cabbage leaf. And we're going to do that. But first we're going to make our sauce. And I have to finish cutting off all those tough parts on those cabbage leaves. Be right back. I added that little bit of butter to my onions, and I'm going to make a little bit of a roux, okay, with that. And I think, wait, maybe that'll just be enough. I'm just going to add, let's get that hot with those onions. Wait, I'll bring that a little closer. You can get a good look at that. Let's go with half a tablespoon. We're going to soak up some of that, what's in there, okay, the butter and the bacon fat, and just sprinkle it around your onion and celery mix, okay, and a little garlic that we added. See how that works? Look, it's just, it absorbs the flour in there. It just absorbs the flour. I think I was careful, so I'm going to go with another half a teaspoon. Careful, because I want to see how much it will absorb, and it is taking it really nicely. That'll thicken that sauce a little bit, because you don't want it watery, and you don't want it real thick either. So we got to figure that one out. And so now, I had in here is a can of stewed tomatoes that I blended in my blender. That's going in there. Ooh, ooh, I made a boo-boo, right? Ooh, splattered. Did you get wet, guys? Oh, God. Okay. Did you get wet? Oh, my goodness. I gotta wipe it. It's okay. We'll survive. Okay. So, it's the fun part of cooking, right? Okay, so now I added the stewed tomatoes in there. And here, careful. I see now this thing dropped out on me. Ooh, boy. I'm going to add the rest of the water. I didn't take this. Oh, boy. Yikes. Okay. Well, at least I didn't start a bonfire. All right, so I'm going to bring that to a nice, it's simmering around the edges. Okay. And now, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to add now. A can of Campbell's tomato soup. To that. And it's just absolutely delicious. I've done this for years and years and years. And people ask me, oh, your sauce is so good. What do you... And I add the soup with stewed tomatoes and make your tiny little roux. And blend it all in. Makes for a yummy sauce. Okay, and let's see. And I always can't forget about my ketchup. I always add ketchup. About, oh, a good tablespoon. And stir that in there. And stir it in. This is coming really nice together. I am going to add some water to that can, about a half a can of water to that soup. And we're going to add that to it. Okay. Well, I got water all over the place. All right, so we're going to add a little more water. Why? Because I'm seeing it a little thicker than I want it, so I simply add a little more water. And you have to remember too now, you don't want it overly thin because, why? This cabbage is probably 90% water. That's another reason. So it'll get thinner. That's why you make it, you thicken your sauce just a little bit. Of course, the soup helps with that too. Now, I have my roasting pan here. My big old roasting pan, and I put a few carrots in there that I cleaned up. 2 carrots, I cleaned them up. I threw them in here. Flavor, you know the deal, right? Oh God, I sound like somebody else now. Okay, so let me see what's happening. I left that little cabbage head in here. Oh, it's doing nice. I'm gonna just let it. That's the very end of it, you know. Okay, so we're simmering that around, And the reason I'm getting this ready because I want to put some at the bottom. And then I'm going to put those little Golumpkis on top of the sauce, and then I'll pour a little over. Okay? So you pour a little over that too. Yeah. Now, time to taste. Always taste. See how well you did. And we even had a water bath. Okay. Oh, it's very nice. It's very nice. The soup gives that a little bit of sweetness, and of course the stewed tomatoes likewise. Just enough. Now, I'm going to pour off some of this sauce into this pan. Like so. Spread it around. Spread it around. And those little cabbage rolls we set them into this sauce. And then we leave some sauce so we can pour some on top. And then they go in the oven. And that looks kind of good to me. We give them a little pool here, you might say. A little swimming pool. Let me turn this off. Okay. There's my roasting pan with the sauce at the bottom. And we're going to start rolling some of our little Golumpkis and place them right in the pan. Okay. All right, so now what I did is I just continued cutting off that core. And it's a little triangle. And so you're going to just cut that off. So I put them on here, and I salt them a little bit. And I sprinkle a little paprika, if you remember I was telling you about that. So we're going to get that on this plate. Let's see, now here, we'll bring it down again. And I see a little bit more of that. I don't want that. Okay. So I sprinkled it, and with a little paprika and a little salt. And they're ready. And so I have a few more to go, but I'll just show you an example, and and then I'll continue to make them. Now, so I take the little cabbage, and that little roll of meat that I had, depending on the size, like that, okay? And so you just go this way, and around, and flap it back, like so, like so. Well, a bigger one's gonna be easier. So you just bring your leaf down. Oh, I didn't cut this good enough. Okay, let's do it again until we get it right. So you make a little triangle. And you take a little bit of that meat, again, put it in your cabbage roll. Now this one's a little bigger, so you can stuff it a little more. And I've got a little bit of rice that clumped. I don't like clumpy rice. Okay, so you cover it like that, and you just come around and around. And there you have. And that goes into the saucepan. I've got it right there. I'm putting it right into the sauce. That's why we made our sauce ahead of time. So we're all ready to rock, you know? All right, so we'll take a little more meat. And you know, you don't want to squeeze it together. You want to keep it gentle so that it cooks nice. And over and over. You make a little bird. Okay, and that's what that is. It's a little bird, little pigeon. Okay, so we cut that core out. A little of that meat in the pocket here. Like so. Over and over. This was a nice leaf. Oh, I put that right in there. Right in there. So we get another one. So you get the idea. You put it in here. Like so, and just go over. Now I see a little too much core there. I'm gonna just cut, and then over and over like this, and like that, and in the little pot it goes into the sauce. They're happy as could be. You get quite a bit out of this. A pound and a half of meat goes a long way. And of course, you know, we serve that with mashed potatoes. Gotta have mashed potatoes with this. All right, so we're gonna come around and around, like so. Make it pretty and put it into the sauce. I will continue doing this now, and then when I'm all done, I'll get right, when as soon as I'm done wrapping them all up, I'll get back to you. I rolled up all those little Golumpkis and in the cabbage, and the sauce that I had remaining in that in my little saute pan, I added about I'm gonna say maybe almost a cup of that water that was left in that was cooking the cabbage water. So I put maybe not quite, but it looked a little thick to me after it was standing. I thought I'm gonna add some of that cabbage water, which is really good. So kind of remember that. I think I added almost a cup. I'm gonna show it to you now. Okay, so all the cabbage is rolled up and in the sauce, and I put little carrots here and there. And you know the little bits and pieces that I had from that little, that was left of that cabbage head, I broke it up and I put it all around the edges. See? Why throw it away? It's good. Adds to the flavor. Now here's our sauce. And what I did is I added about a cup or so, or 3/4. Just add a little bit as you see it, okay? You know, it's hard to describe everything but here, you see how that is? It's just a little runnier, but the flavor is really good. So keep that water from your cabbage that you were cooking all that time. Now we're going to add, I'm going to add a tiny bit of sauce, or rather salt, excuse me, just run it over the top. Just run it over the top. I did salt each leaf. Remember I showed you? Add just a tiny bit of salt and a little paprika, and so I'm going to do that again. Just a little bit over the top. Little bit over the top. And so now we have our sauce, and I'm going to spoon that sauce over my cabbage leaves. Doesn't that look nummy? Oh my, it's so good. You know, it does involve a couple of steps that you have to do, but if you have an afternoon or a morning, you know, where it's kind of dreary, looks like rain the rest of the day, it's a good day to do that. And it's fairly simple. It's just that there's quite a few little steps to take. So I'm going to do this like that. And you see where you saute a little bit of that celery and onion? That all adds. So try to remember that. And don't boil the cabbage in a whole pot of water, because that's not at all necessary. I'm going to reserve some of this yet, and maybe I'll need to baste them as they cook in the oven. I'm going to check them. You lightly pack your meat in there and wrap it up like a little bird, like a little flower, and look at it. And it'll look absolutely marvelous. It's exciting. And you're going to serve that with some mashed potatoes. That's what we're going to do for tonight. Now, I put the oven on at 350. And I'm going to cover it with some foil. And I'd say at least an hour. Sometimes hour and a half. You want that cabbage to be nice and tender, and so that the meat is, well, as I said, at least maybe a little more than an hour. Okay, so when we're plating it up with those mashed potatoes, we'll get back to you. I plated up our little Golumpki, and the sauce came out so good and so tasty. The sweet little carrot that was in the roasting pan with our Golumpkis. The cabbage turned out so nice and tender and sweet. The mashed potatoes I whipped up with some butter and milk and a little Velveeta cheese. You can see how nice that meat is in there too, with the rice. I wanted to tell you that at the end result on the roasting was 1 hour and 45 minutes. So you want to make sure that your cabbage is tender. I hope that you will try my recipe. Enjoy.